Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Sharo Live. I'm Beth Sharo. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sharo Commerce. Welcome here today. I'm excited that you've all joined us and ready to kick off on a great topic with Candy from our team. We've been pretty busy this month at a couple of different events, and we still have Big Summit next week coming. So I'll be attending in Austin next week. So super excited to meet up with some people that we've known for many years and just catch up on what's going on with Big Commerce. And then next month, we'll be having an event with Elevar in New York City. So lots of things happening here at Sharo, and ready to get started on today's topic. So we're going to be talking about AI, personalization, omnichannel design, things of that nature. So I'd love to introduce Candy from our team. She's joined a couple of times, but for the newcomers here today, welcome, Candy. How are
Hi,
you doing today?
Ted. Happy Thursday.
Yes, welcome, welcome. So, we might have some new people here. Everybody's getting to know you. I would love for you to give a little intro.
Yeah, I'm the head of marketing and growth here at Shiro. I've been in e-commerce for over 15 years and working with marketing growth and product teams too. So I've been in tech my entire life and now heading everything marketing related for our clients at here Shiro.
Awesome. Thank you. And last week you were at Retail Summit, the first one that they had in Columbus, Ohio.
Yeah,
So we wanted to like kind of get your input on how you think it went. You know, your first time at a Retail Summit event, and also
yeah,
like their event there, and your
correct.
takeaways. So, how was the event?
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. I think that a lot of people don't know that actually Columbus has a lot of headquarters here. So the L brands like Victoria's Secret, Big Lots, and Homage, Abercrombie and Fitch. There's like a lot of big brands here located in Columbus. So a lot of those companies were there. And it was the attendance was solid and there was a lot of very interesting people that to my opinion has like first-hand experience into e-commerce all the way from the marketing side to operations. So it was very empowering and very fruitful to hear from them firsthand. And I think that the conversations that were had were very very interesting, and I think that retail summits people, they did a pretty good job with mixing different personas and people from like different areas in the same conversation. So I thought that was super, super cool.
Awesome. It's good to hear. You had some great takeaways, and I think one, like just to start off, one of the things that, we always hear about now is AI and
Yeah,
personalization.
yeah,
And actually, when I was at the Retail Summit in New York, that topic came up as well.
yeah.
And it was interesting to hear different perspectives, but I know you had some takeaways that you'd like to share.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have a lot of takeaways, but I think I kind of like would like to discuss about five different ones that really, really caught my attention. So for sure, AI was the topic across the board. I think like people are starting to experiment with it a lot. And obviously, AI data in terms of e-commerce recommendations and personalization was the topic that it probably was the most discussed at the summit. And very, very interesting because my feeling from what these people were saying from like Kroger, another one, big one, kind of HQ is here in Cincinnati, like the big one is personalization, right? How do we put in front of people what they're looking for, what they're here to buy? Let's not waste their time, etc. But how do we do it in a human way? To,
Right.
for lack of a better word, right? I think that a lot of people are still a little bit skeptical and they want to be very precautious on how they implement this data, because if you go all in, I think from a user experience it could be a lot, right? Of like, hey, to the point of like you're reading my mind. Right? So
There.
yes, 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 and you see it right with like social media. Sorry.
I was gonna say, did they overhear me in the kitchen? You know, when you have an Alexa and then they get advertised something you were talking about?
Right. That's what I was going to say. People are already feeling it from an ads perspective, right? You're having a conversation, I don't know, with your friends on a night out over drinks about different sports bras, and all of a sudden you're getting targeted with a lot of sports bras brands, right? So that's already throwing people off. So imagine when you kind of like, to the point that the lady from Kroger was making, of like, let's not waste candy's time if we know what candy is buying every week. Kroger, right? And they're really looking into improving their e-com experience, but how do we do it in a way that candy doesn't feel like we're inside her fridge? Literally, right? So that is kind of like a topic that to me was extremely interested, because we've always been surrounded in the past years by a lot of data, and now with the AI even more. But then how do we put it into practice with a solid user experience that is not so intimidating or invasive? That's, I think those are the two right words, right? How don't we don't like avoid making the user, the customer, feel like we're invading their personal life,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
super valid.
Yeah, yeah. So that was kind of like one of like the biggest takeaways for me, because I know that also we are experimenting with AI platforms to make our lives easier, to be able to bring to our clients more like decisions based on data, and what we're analyzing from a conversion rate optimization perspective, etc. So that was super, super interesting. The other one that is also connected to data, that I think it was the first time that I really heard people talking about this in a very long time, is data driven design, right?
I love it.
Everything, yeah, I love it. I love it because also, like, one, how this conversation came out was like, how do you convince leadership sometimes when you are like kind of like on my level, on a head level, VP level, you have these executive conversations, right? And sometimes when it comes into design and UX, there's a lot of personal opinions involved, right?
Feelings.
Some people like something, some people like another thing, and this person was saying, well, data driven design, right?
Hmm.
How do we bring the data and the things that we're learning into the conversation, and really, it's not about, hey, what you think is prettier or
Yeah,
better looking, is about like looking into the data and really kind of like build a user experience that responds to that kind of like bunch of data that we're collecting all the time. So that was kind of like another very interesting topic, because I think that if there's an area in tech and e-commerce in general that I always see a lot of back and forth, is design,
yeah,
UX, right? Like, I don't like that image, or look at this button, etc. But like, are we looking at the data to make those design decisions? And these are like both sides of the brain, right? So I thought that was super interesting. I haven't seen from an AI perspective yet, a platform that analyzes this, but I
mhm,
think it's a matter of months until Figma that I think is leading the way.
like Hotjar or somebody's.
Right. You're able to plug, and as probably, maybe I'm giving too many ideas here, but like probably as you're designing, they feed you with data that they're seeing from Hotjar and heat maps and GA4. So to help the designer, who's probably not very aware of that, make these last minute calls, and for like executives to be able to also make those calls collaboratively.
Yeah, I mean, we've been talking about this for years at Shero. It's like so helpful, to your point, to have that data to back up why you're making those decisions.
Hmm.
It's just a really strong argument. Another area too in the design process is like ADA compliance. I know it's like the last thing sometimes people think about, but
Yes,
it's,
absolutely.
so
Yeah.
there are tools that can help you in the design process with that as well. It all matters so that you can have the best experience for your users, which ADA is huge for that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know.
Totally. Another topic that really caught my attention because I'm really passionate about this one because I'm yet to kind of like say, man, they're killing them. I'm going to share my screen because I think that there's a couple of people that out there that are doing like a really good job, but
What are
loyalty.
we? Loyalty. Okay, I was like, what are we diving
Yeah,
in here? What are we doing?
loyalty. Yeah, so loyalty is something that I've been. So I was in Web3, right, for a very long time. I introduced NFTs when I was working at Spring, right when a couple of years ago they boomed. So I've been in Web3 for a very long time, and loyalty is a very big part of NFT projects and some Web3 projects in general. So I've been looking into this for the longest time, and then loyalty has been incorporated as part of like many marketing strategies, right? Everybody wants to engage with their clients, everybody wants to work on community, right? But in my opinion, there are very few that are doing it well, right? And obviously the big corporations like Starbucks here, who else do I have? Sephora, right? And the North Face, these are very big corporations that have all of the resources to really map a loyalty program from a tech perspective and the marketing perspective very well. But in the retail summit, everybody was also talking about loyalty, but I got this sense from very different companies. One company being like in sports and entertainment, another company being in like food and hospitality. They were doing it, but then one, they couldn't really speak of the return on investment of
Mm,
it. And they
yeah.
all, and there was a common message, which I'm very aware of, that it takes a lot of time to do it well,
Yes. Yeah.
right? Everybody wants to do it, but it's very hard to track. It's very hard to do it well, right? And the other one is like there's yet to we're yet to find, I feel like, a solution from a tech perspective that can really plug in into whatever a company wants to do. Because a loyalty program for somebody selling pizza could be very different than like from a Kroger, a Sephora, or somebody selling swimsuits, like
Yeah.
so I thought that was a very interesting conversation. And my biggest question sometimes, because I've done a lot of like brand marketing as well, is like, how do you dedicate the internal resources to something that you really want to do, but is very hard to track,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And so, super interesting conversation. I think that everybody in that panel was trying to do a very good job explaining like where they were at with loyalty, but the overall sense that I had was is not as straightforward as it seems,
Right. Right.
because a lot of people want to be original. I'm showing now the case of Sephora. I'm part of the program. I buy Sephora. I like to get points and turn them into dollars, right? And then I get a discount because every 3 months I need to renew my makeup and whatever, right? But like when you want to remove yourself from just points and dollars and you want to make it more sophisticated for X or Y reason, I feel like brands are starting to struggle, but
Right.
yet everybody wants to do it because a lot of things that people are saying is like we're mixing loyalty to with community. That's another buzzword that we've been hearing a lot. And right,
Yes.
yeah, and then people are like, well, but then how do I do it? And then so I feel like another one, like, right, like I feel like people are starting to experiment with these new concepts. They have really good examples from, again, Sephora, Starbucks, and their star programs that everybody loves. It's a no-brainer. And they have done a very good job integrating their app right into the full-on user experience, etc. But smaller companies, maybe with tighter resources from a human perspective and maybe a budget perspective, I think that they're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. I mean, this has been going on for quite some time from my experience, but it is a big trend within this year that I've heard a lot about. There's
Mhm.
many different ways to tackle it, and there's so many different technologies. It's overwhelming to make those decisions and knowing you made the right decision, but also it's hard to know what's going to resonate with your customer, right?
Totally.
Like, so you really need to understand your customer and what's going to motivate them, because if you do loyalty where you're rewarding them for something they already do, to your point with Kroger, it's like, it's kind of a waste of time and energy. So like thinking outside of the
Yeah,
box and being creative, I think is useful too, instead of just points with
yeah,
Sephora.
yeah,
It depends on what
100%.
you're going for, I guess, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think it's a great challenge.
there's so many challenges.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a great challenge. Obviously, from a marketing perspective, I think of those VPs, head of marketing, CMOs, trying to pitch something like this internally. And this kind of like aligns with the fourth topic that caught my attention, what that was like attribution in omni challenge being so challenging these days,
Yeah,
right? And so again, with loyalty, you're tackling a lot of different channels to just promote your loyalty program, right? From email, from your website, from your socials, etc. You're talking about it, but what is driving traffic to your loyalty program? Let's say, but from a wider perspective, omni-channel has been again the topic for the past 5 years in e-commerce, right? Everybody's talking about it. It is what it is, and now we have social commerce, right? It's like the way technology and user behavior, I think consumer behavior is going because of technology, so we just need to keep up with it. But then as you're trying to keep up with it and making sure that you're everywhere, because you
right.
have to be everywhere, because now if you're not on TikTok and you're a DTC brand, what are you doing,
Yeah,
right?
yes then.
Right, but then attribution,
Right.
how do you make like database decision on how and where to invest your money when you're tackling so many channels, and make like it's just very hard to track. So maybe another idea there to the cosmos for somebody super smart: ai can help. Can ai help with this? Can ai make our lives easier and plug all of those channels that we're currently like thinking about and trying to analyze ROI, and hey, make our lives easier? Because this was a topic that I could see the pain in these people's faces, right? On like how do we track ROI when we are like every time you're talking about our marketing strategy, you're at least talking about 10 different channels.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and then there's also like challenges with technology, like with the latest Google Analytics update, like JA4, like people are just so overwhelmed, and it's like it
Very
feels
frustrated.
they're, treading water just to like get through it. It's like a really challenging time, I think, is like the summary. Like everyone's working so hard to win, and it's challenging for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah. It's super challenging. And like from a marketing perspective, right? Like for the longest time, and I remember back in the day when I was like starting to kind of like go into management positions and you're reviewing your budget, etc. For example, PR was one that it was extremely hard to track ROI, right?
Right. Right.
Like, but then it was like a big budget allocator in terms of a marketing channel, right? And but now, even though these platforms like the TikToks, the Metas, etc., Google, they are kind of like making investments to make your life easier. I think that what I've been feeling the frustration from these people is that there's so many places, and just going to a meta ads, right, is a maze. Is a maze. And to be able to navigate those, track them, etc., etc. So yeah, very interesting, very crazy, but I can see the suffering on the people in the marketing teams because it's not easy.
Yeah. I mean,
Not
there's
easy.
some help though. We're learning and the technology is evolving. Like, we're just in a strange time in the world, and AI is driving forward fast, but not fast enough, right?
Mhm,
So
mhm.
it'll
Yeah,
be interesting to see how it pans out, but I
yeah,
think it'll stabilize in the very near future, hopefully.
yeah, yeah, no, totally, 100%. And then, like, as another, like, the fifth topic that I would say that was kind of like one of my biggest takeaway, that I feel like I've been saying this for years and years, but then when somebody brought it up in one of the panels, I was like, yes, and is attention deficit and how that affects UX, right?
Yeah.
Um, I have ADHD, but also I know a lot of people that when I'm talking to them about email, etc., they're like, I don't read,
Yeah, we
right?
just had this earlier.
You're
Awesome.
just talking, right? You just
We're in
kind
the
of scan, move forward because also your life is omni-channel life, right? So, so that was a super interesting topic because it's becoming overwhelming, right? You have a lot of data that you need to process to in order to understand how you simplify a design, etc., to make the most out of the little time that somebody is dedicating to your website, that product page, etc., right? But how do you balance it for this attention deficit, right? At the moment, I was telling you this morning, right? We're in the world of TikTok that in 3 seconds, a video needs to catch your attention for you to kind of like carry on watching, right? So imagine put that span of attention into an email, into a product page, into a homepage, right? Is challenging. Is challenging, and I think I don't know how it's gonna evolve. And two, maybe it goes the opposite direction, right? And like we do like a retro, sometimes that happens
Well, I
because
just listening to a podcast about mailers, people mailing hard paper again because people don't, it's easier to track in some regards, and people want to touch things, they want to see things, it's just,
yeah,
it's interesting. Everything does come back around, like trends and fashion.
exactly. Like maybe in a couple of years, Balpac is gonna be thriving again. Uh, but yeah, I mean that was a good one. Oh, sorry.
Oh, we got a good question here. So, what's the tip for catching someone's attention on your website for the first 30 seconds? Ooh, good
What a
one.
question. Now that's a great question. And I think that the tip, I think that in order to kind of like give an advice on that, I think is going to be very personal to everybody's kind of like business and the product that they're offering. Because one thing is like selling a pair of sneakers, and another thing is selling kind of like a big piece of machinery, for example.
Yeah,
Right? There was some people in the summit, in the retail summit, that were selling golf clubs and cars, and the point of view on that and how to catch somebody's attention on a website in the first 3 seconds versus, I don't know, somebody selling a T-shirt like from Homage is very different, right? I
yeah,
would say that if anything, more than a tip, I would say that like the best practice is to really look at going back to data driven design, is looking at the data, seeing how people um, are interacting with your site, what are they engaging with, and making those data driven decisions from a design perspective. In my opinion, one of the things that people always forget in e-commerce, because you have so many other things to worry about from operations, etc., is conversion rate optimization.
yep, yep,
We go all in and we decide to spend a lot of figures, figures, 6 figures in acquisition, but then you realize that your website is converting at a 0.5%,
right, yeah.
right? And you're
With
like,
markers.
right, 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 right. And then you're like, what's going on? Why I'm not selling enough if I'm spending $1 million in PPC in Q4, and people forget about it. And conversion rate is linked to a lot of things. It's linked to design, right? It's linked to that question from Ashley of like, how do you catch attention on your website in the first 3 seconds? So I think that's why data driven design was one of like my takeaways from the summit. And
Yeah, I like that. I would also say, like, to your point, though, it's so hard depending on what you're selling, but like solving people's problems is usually very helpful in the conversion rate optimization, right? Like
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
just visual and making sure that the button's at the right place and all that, but like making sure you provide enough information because from my experience, a lot of customers struggle with having proper product descriptions. Like it's very challenging when you have a large catalog, but it's so
Mhm.
simple. So I would say, make sure your descriptions are helpful and
Yeah,
help educate the user on what they're actually buying. Right?
totally.
It sounds so stupid, but I've seen this happen a lot. People are wondering what's going on, and then I look at their description and they've gotten it from the manufacturer. You know,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Another big one that I think is related to this topic, right, is if you and I are shopping in Sephora, your
Mhm.
experience and my experience should be 100% different, even though we're going with the same purpose of probably buying some makeup or like face products or whatever, or like a shampoo, etc. But like you have one type of skin and there is and one like skin color that is different from mine. We have different hair type, etc. So that's kind of like that was one big topic in AI recommendations and personalization of like, hey, maybe a lot of people come with the same purpose to your
Right,
website, but the experience has to be absolutely different every time they join because based on the products that they bought, based on their skin, their taste, their budgets. Maybe I
right,
have $1,000 to spend in skincare, and maybe you have $100. So we shouldn't be targeted with the same products, right?
100. Yeah,
So that I am waiting to see that kind of like choose your own story e-commerce experience and based on who you are, etc. But again, with this warning of like, how do we give that a humanized approach and not an approach of like AI is living in your bathroom cabinet, looking at the products that you have in there,
yeah,
because
yeah,
it could feel. I remember somebody, I think it was the lady running e-commerce from Kroger, saying, "How do we do it in a way that is not invasive?"
yeah. It's
Right?
valid.
Super valid, because we're already a little bit exhausted. Sorry, with the ads, like I was saying, etc. So that is a key takeaway and something that at least on my end, I'm going to be thinking about a lot and learning from the best examples out there.
Awesome. Well, I love your takeaways. Very insightful. I know we don't have answers to all of them, but starting the conversation and working through it. We're all learning all the time in this world of e-commerce. So
100%.
excited. I'm optimistic about the future. So
Yeah. No, 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 for sure, for sure. I'm hoping that my life gets easier with this technology. I'm really looking forward. Yeah, I agree.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining, Candy, and for sharing some of your takeaways. More to come.
Yeah,
We're constantly adding to our services around marketing that your team offers and the tools that we're using. We want to automate as much as possible. So I'm sure you'll have more to share in the near future.
100%. Yeah, we're
So
learning every day.
we are. Cool. Thank you again for everybody that's joined. I hope you had or received a little bit of information, or maybe can resonate that you're not alone. A lot of people are struggling with some of these topics, but there are some good solutions to them already, and they're continuing to evolve at such a rapid pace. So, again, thank you for joining. And next week I'll be at Big Summit again, and then we have the Elevar event in New York City. So excited to see you all. And I'm Beth Sherrill. Always be learning.